News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio or online, every morning it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
I'm Mark Dolan. It's time for Headliners. A first look at tomorrow's papers with two of my favourite comedians. Oh no, it's Leo Kirsten, Nick Dixon. Oh well. Big stories, big opinions, and yeah, a couple of laughs along the way. First up, the headlines with Polly.
Mark, thank you. The top story tonight. The Prime Minister will be urging Northern Ireland's politicians to get back to work after the DUP blocked the election of a speaker at the Stormont Assembly this week. Boris Johnson is going to travel to Belfast on Monday for a series of crisis talks. Government sources say he'll use a series of private meetings to say parties must come together if problems with the Northern Ireland Protocol are to be fixed. Earlier, Sinn Féin accused the Prime Minister of using Northern Ireland and the Irish Republic as a negotiating tool with the European Union.
Boris Johnson can't play games with the people of the North or with the island of Ireland. He has connived with the DUP to use Ireland, to use the north of Ireland, to use unionism in Ireland as a pawn in a wider game that is being played out with the European Union, and that is clearly a shameful tactic.
Well, in news away from home, President Zelensky of Ukraine says his country's counter-offensive has forced Russian troops to retreat from some areas of Kharkiv. The region's governor says troops have made ground near the Russian-held town of Izium, where Moscow's forces have been trying to fight their way south. It's been described as Ukraine's fastest advance since Russian troops pulled away from the capital, Kyiv. President Zelensky thanked all of the country's fighters.
The situation in Donbass is still very difficult. Russian troops are still trying to show at least some kind of victory. On the 80th day of the full-scale invasion, it seems especially deranged, but they do not stop their efforts. I'm grateful to every man and woman who holds the line and brings Donbass, Priyazovia and Kherson nearer to what is happening now in the Kharkiv region. Step by step, we are forcing the occupiers to leave our land. We will force them to leave the Ukrainian sea as well.
Well, here in the FA Cup final today, Liverpool have beaten Chelsea 6-5 on dramatic sudden death penalties after extra time ended at 0-0. Substitute Kostas Tsimikas scored the winning penalty after Chelsea's captain hit the post. The win means Liverpool remain on course for an unprecedented quadruple of trophies. They sit 3 points behind Man City in the Premier League race with 2 games to go. And on May the 28th, they'll meet Real Madrid in the Champions League final. The Chelsea manager, Thomas Tuchel, says he thought his team was going to win.
We are sad, at the same time proud, because we left everything what you need. I was sure we win today, I was sure before, and I was sure during the match that the momentum is today on our side, and I was sure until the very last minute, and unfortunately I was not right. So we have to digest it and keep on going. It's life in sports.
That's life. On TV, online and on your radio via DAB+. You're with GB News, and now it's time for Headliners.
I'm Mark Dolan and welcome to Headliners, a first look at tomorrow's papers in the company of two top comedians tonight. A man more English than cricket, cheddar cheese and real ale, Nick Dixon. And alongside him, a man more Scottish than unwanted teenage pregnancy, Leo Kearse. He's got a bun in the oven. Gentlemen, let's start by taking a look at tomorrow's front pages, and we begin with the Sunday Telegraph. And they're splashing with the following. Minister's turn on the Bank of England. Unprecedented attack on the independent body as Sunak told to get a grip on the cost of living. The Telegraph there speculating that the Bank of England should have done more in advance to get inflation down. Also, their cups runneth over. Liverpool celebrate another FA Cup win over luckless Chelsea. Next up, The Independent. Liverpool win the FA Cup on penalties. Could they do the double or even the treble? Because, of course, they're in the running for the Premier League and the Champions League. Meanwhile, Johnson falls £240 million short on his net zero tragedy. I humbly suggest we've got bigger fish to fry at the moment, but, of course, that's just my opinion. The Observer. Our crumbling schools, a risk to life, officials warn Number 10. A leaked report reveals that fears of damage to school buildings is a threat to pupils and teachers alike. Also, Wes Streeting denies a plan to succeed Keir Starmer. Labour rising star Wes Streeting has denied preparing a leadership bid to replace Keir Starmer after it emerged that the wealthy party donor Wahid Ali hosted a recent fundraising event for him and another MP at his central London home. Well, you know when a politician denies something, a few months later, it will happen. The Sunday Mirror now. EastEnders racist ruined my life. A mum today tells of her frustration, anger and upset after being racially abused by TV's Katie Jarvis. Michelle Antonio was hit with a barrage of abuse after ex-EastEnders star Jarvis let rip in a seaside bus-stop. Mum of three Michelle is haunted by the episode, has had to quit work and suffered panic attacks. She said, "I've been stressing myself out for 2 years." The Sunday Times. Hunt. Rogue NHS requires major surgery. Ex-Health Secretary Jeremy Hunt was shocked to the core by a cover-up culture over avoidable deaths in maternity departments in England. New pressure on Sunak as 1 in 5 pulled into the higher tax bands. And a journalist in hiding after she exposed unlawful leader. A journalist in Sri Lanka is in hiding in fear for her life after finding evidence that the president should have been barred from running for office in 2019. Sunday Express next. What a final. Reds triumph in dramatic shootout. And Rishi ready to help on the cost of living crisis. And last but not least, the Daily Star Sunday. Russ from Filey. Aliens abducted me 60 times to fight intergalactic war. Is this man the unluckiest earthling in the galaxy? Weary Russ Kellett has had a rotten run of luck, abducted 60 times from his North Yorkshire home to fight for an alien army against other extraterrestrials. Surely being abducted by aliens is better than living in Britain for the last 2 years. And those are your front page headlines. And we kick off with The Observer, and it seems Boris Johnson is easily distracted, Nicholas.
Indeed. Boris Johnson says cheese and coffee can distract when working from home. This is in The Observer PM. calls for a return to offices, saying it makes staff more productive, more energetic, more full of ideas. And I love the quote. He said, "My experience of working from home is you spend an awful lot of time making another cup of coffee and then, getting up, walking very slowly to the fridge, hacking off a small piece of cheese, then walking very slowly back to your laptop, then forgetting what it is you're doing." Kind of the Joe Biden school of working from home. But yeah, we've all been there. We've all hacked off tiny pieces of cheese and forgotten what we're doing. I mean, it's right. I mean, some tasks are easier working from home, like if you've got to do a lot of writing or something. But generally, it is better to come into the office. I love coming into the GB office OBS. And I do think what's happened is it's pretty clear, isn't it? People got used to working at home during COVID, well, during the lockdowns, let's be specific. And then they became too lazy to go back to work. Laziness is a good thing, obviously, because we make things more convenient for ourselves because we're lazy. That's how we got out of the caves. But you can go too far and you just end up, sitting at home eating cheese, which is what's happened here. Although I would add, just quickly, that two things. One, I do understand it is hell commuting. I used to commute on the Central line. It's the hottest line. It was horrific. The only way I could cope was like wearing football shorts and a thin T-shirt because it was so hot. But I would also add, this is sort of Boris at his best. This is a bit of Boris charm coming back, isn't it? Because he's in trouble at the moment. He's just talked about cheese, and somehow you like him again.
Well, I'm not sure if... because he's been criticised for so many things at the moment. So by turning around and saying, look, I'm absolutely terrible at working and I'm so lazy. If you leave me for a moment, I'll forget what I'm doing and I'll just start eating cheese. That's not the most reassuring thing for a world leader to say.
But everyone knows that.
But
everybody knows that...
The candour is refreshing, isn't it?
Well,
it's charming.
I think if he was really going to be candid, he'd reveal, like all of us who work from home, you just up your rate of masturbation. Unless you're Neil Parish, you can somehow maintain the same level of masturbation at work and at home.
I see. And on that rather inflammatory note, let's move on to the Sunday Telegraph next. And it sounds like Putin has given Finland a grave warning, Leo.
Yeah, that's right. So the Russian president, who's not having the best of wars, has warned his Finnish counterpart that relations between the two neighbours could be negatively affected if Finland follows through with plans to apply for NATO membership. He said there are no threats to Finland's security, which, you can take that promise and put it in the bank, I mean, when Ukraine got rid of its nuclear missiles in the 90s, it was promised by Russia that it would be completely safe just as long as it got rid of those nuclear missiles. And if it still had those nuclear missiles, do you think Russia would be invading? So this surprise invasion of Ukraine has really made, countries close to Russia, such as Sweden and Finland, think twice about, their neutral status and how safe they are next to Russia. So they're both going through with plans to join NATO. And this is huge for Russia because Finland's got a huge border, 810-mile border with Russia. So right on the shore. So if that was a NATO country, they wouldn't be able to step a foot over there. And also it would narrow Russia's access to the Baltic Sea as well.
I mean, if you're Finland, you seek NATO membership, don't you? This is a no-brainer.
Yeah, absolutely. You need that. I mean, NATO isn't it's not a sort of conquest-oriented force. It's purely defensive.
It's not territorial. It's not imperial.
Yeah.
But it's a global compact for national security. What do you think about this story? I mean, here we go, more saber rattling from old.
Well, yeah, it's very much like Leo said. I mean, Putin has said there's no need for this, as there's no threat. But it's kind of like a shark saying to you, "There's no threat. There's plenty of seals around. Don't worry about it." So yeah, I'm not totally sure they can trust that. Though, if you are on the side that says this was avoidable and it was due to NATO expansionism, which I know Leo's not on that side, but you could argue that Finland then going into NATO is not going to help with that. But ostensibly, of course, you are safer in NATO once you're actually in there. And I can see why they want to do it. Although you could argue it's a bit academic. If it really kicks off, you just get a few more minutes before the nukes land. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, Putin has threatened retaliation if Finland signs up to NATO. And what's he going to retaliate with? I mean, all of his troops, 80% of his standing army went into Ukraine, and they're now currently either dead or retreating from Ukraine. So much of his tanks and armaments have been destroyed. Has he got any missiles left? It's
hard to see the Russians holding out.
Yeah.
Even this side of Christmas, I think it will be done.
He's having an absolute nightmare. And the West is quite cynically, using Ukraine to just grind down the Russian military power. So they're just, throwing more grist into the mill, and they're just, it's cynical in a way, because I think we could have found a peaceful resolution to this sooner. But they want to see all the Russian tanks and all the Russian armaments used up.
And send out a message to other aggressors that this sort of invasion is not going to succeed.
Yeah, if China invades Taiwan, or if Putin thinks of invading Moldova, it's not going to go well for them.
And historically, it hasn't gone that well for people invading Finland, has it? They've been pretty fierce fighters in previous wars.
Talk of a coup in the Kremlin to unseat Vladimir Putin, which could be another interesting development.
Well, the one thing that Vladimir Putin's regime seems to be very good at is a suppression and operation of people at home. So they've got a very tight security apparatus that seems to be holding him in power and suppressing dissent at home. But absolutely terrible at invading other countries.
Yes, it seems to be Putin's war, not Russia's.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting stuff. Well, look, let's crack on. Any more thoughts on masturbation before we move on, or just
No, Nick, could you stop, please?
OK, sorry about that.
OK, perhaps you can pop one out later in the show, by which I mean, a good point. The Independent next, and let's talk about monkeypox, which sounds like a 16th century disease for pirates, doesn't it?
Yes, 2 more monkeypox cases identified in England, and this is the new disease that will kill us all / do nothing. We don't know which yet, but we're going to have to, as I said the other day, we're going to keep after hearing about this disease and other animal-based diseases, because that's the new big thing the media can scare us with. So there are 2 cases unrelated to a case found on 7th of May, which is the previous one we covered, but they are in the same household, apparently. And reminder here that monkeypox is a rare viral infection that does not spread easily between people. It's usually mild and self-limiting, but that's not going to stop the media from using it to scare us all.
Do you catch it off monkeys?
Yeah, in Nigeria so far, apparently. Someone
I've got this terrible triggered reaction now, Leo, which is if someone mentions a new virus, I don't care.
Right.
I'm done.
You're down at the STD clinic and you're just... I don't care. Put some Savlon on it.
After 2 years of extraordinary and unprecedented damage as a result of trying to control the virus, I'm just like, the next one is like, do your worst, baby.
Yeah. Even though I wouldn't be surprised if Bill Gates is behind this, because COVID didn't quite work out for him. He didn't get to vaccinate everybody because Omicron came along and vaccinated everybody for him, and he actually moaned about that as if as if people being
he called it like he said it was a shame or something, didn't he? It was so sad. It was unfortunate.
Yeah. So maybe he's been in his lab, and instead of winged monkeys, he's got poxed monkeys, and now he's set them free to bite people. But obviously I'm speculating, so please don't sue me.
Yeah, Nick,
you're saying that's not fact.
You do look a little pasty tonight, and you've got some unusual bumps on your hand.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mark. Yes, you might want to get away now, because I was chatting with a monkey just before. I should have flagged that up.
Could be the monkeypox.
I saw him swinging in a tyre.
Yeah, well, that would do it.
That's just my workout.
It could be the monkeypox. It could be the onanism. Who knows?
How dare you?
Moving on, this argument around class and education is an interesting one in The Observer, Leo.
Yeah, so the Education Secretary Nadine Zahawi has pushed back against the idea of elite universities such as Oxford and Cambridge tilting the system to take in more state students. So at the moment Cambridge are pursuing this positive discrimination where, obviously historically it's been, Etonians and people went to private school who are then filtered into our elite universities, and they want to open that out and get more state school attendees. But Nadeem Zahawi is saying, don't do it. It should be based on merit, and the focus should be on delivering more outstanding schools, which I can absolutely see the point on both sides. I guess the case against this sort of positive discrimination towards state schools is it steals success from the ones who do make it. People are going to say, "Oh, you only got in because of this scheme." Also, state schools aren't all bad. They don't all just pump out scumbags like me and Nick. Get some good ones as well.
Yeah.
So you can't say that these people aren't getting a level playing field. And also, if there's no incentive for me to get rich so I can send my child to Eton so I can get into Oxford, what's the point of me working hard to get money?
Why live?
It's going to completely undermine our whole economic system of nepotism and greed.
Yeah, I'm torn about this. I think as you are, Leo, because I think it's important that all kids have access to elite education, whatever their background, whatever the school. The flip side is that if Oxford and Cambridge are going to be a pure meritocracy, they would take straight A students and not even acknowledge the actual academic institution from which they've come.
Yeah, I agree. All we ever want is a meritocracy. I've still not ever found it, because I went from not getting opportunities because I was from a rubbish comprehensive school to not getting them because I was suddenly a privileged white man. So I seem to always be in the wrong place at the wrong time. But
there was about 10 minutes when you ticked all the boxes.
I was riding high for 10 seconds. But it is hard to give the other side. There's a culture ingrained in private and public versus comprehensive schools. So in my school, no one from my year went to Oxford or Cambridge. Couldn't even. I don't know if they maybe got the interview, but that's another thing. We won't even know how to do the interviews.
Yeah.
And I got not to boast or anything, but I got the third highest grade in the country on my history A level. In the country. No one ever said to me on that syllabus. No one ever said to me, go to Oxford or Cambridge. It wasn't even raised. It wasn't even on the map for people at my school. And some people went, obviously, but it was rare. This is the problem. So it is a very deep culture of difference in these schools. So there is that factor, but I do still prefer to have just a meritocracy, but it is complicated. I like this idea that Eton are now doing state schools. Do you see that? That's an interesting sort of spin that Eton are somewhere in here doing. Oh, yeah, Eton College are open 3 sixth form colleges in Dudley, Middlesbrough and Oldham, which is interesting. Maybe that's one solution. But yeah, all we actually want is a meritocracy. I don't think we should go so far towards you can't come in if you're from a public school. It should just be as close to the idea of pure merit as possible. Equality of opportunity, that's all we're looking for.
Yes, I mean, it's interesting. There's an American author that I've had on my show, and he's called Kenny Zhu, and he's a US, I guess an Asian American, you would say. He's a guy of his family, East Asian background. And he wrote a book called An Inconvenient Minority, the attack on Asian American excellence and the fight for meritocracy. He alleges in the book that places like Harvard and Yale are actually cancelling Asian students because they're just too clever. They get straight A's, and they're basically filling up the year groups.
And
what are you going to do?
And when you make have an identitarian approach where you say, well, everybody, our demographic spread across our student intake has to completely match the country. I mean, that's ridiculous. Where does it end? Do we have to have complete parity in every role and everything?
And in this case, you're actually prejudging against people of colour, which is Asian people. So it's a brand new level of discrimination, isn't it?
And it's even worse.
You're of colour, but you're the wrong type of colour, which is East Asian, in which academic achievement seems to be a cultural thing.
Yeah, you're too clever, and it's even worse than you said, Mark, because then they had to start justifying it. So then they said, well, it's also personality. So suddenly they were marked down on personality.
Wow.
Yeah, they were too clever, but they didn't, they weren't rounded.
So does that mean Asian Americans aren't good company or something? You don't want to get stuck next to someone that's Asian American at a dinner party?
That's a dangerous question to ask on GBNews, Mark.
Probably right. The Daily Star next, and an FA Cup final day. And this is a pretty spectacular story, isn't it, Nick? I mean, goes to penalties again.
Yes, but this is about what happened before the game, Mark, because Liverpool fans loudly boo national anthem before FA Cup final with Chelsea. So they've been booing the national anthem, actually, on and off for years. Depends if they're in a final, of course, but this started, it was something to do with the 80s with the Tory government, the so-called managed decline of Liverpool. Hillsborough was part of it. They also resent the food banks outside Goodison and Anfield. There's a sort of general feeling that, Liverpool's been neglected and so on. I have sort of limited sympathy. I totally get the Sun boycott. The Sun was appalling in the wake of Hillsborough. Many papers were. The Sun was the worst.
Accusing fans of being responsible for the tragedy, which they were not.
When it was police negligence. Yeah. I would totally boycott the Sun if I was from Liverpool. I could easily imagine. Where they lose me is this. There's the signs saying Scouse, not English, and then you're booing the national anthem. And you're also booing Abide With Me, which was a hymn based on an 1847 prayer thing written by Henry Francis Light, I think he's called. In 1847, set to music a few years later. Quite a strange thing to boo. And to me, you've gone a bit too far there when you're booing the anthem. It's the most base thing you can do, really, whether you're a sort of hardcore Remainer or you're a Liverpool fan, when you're sort of hating your own country. I mean, you are the country. If you're resentful, you'll have a resentful country. If you aspire to greatness, you'll have a great country. So I don't believe in this thing of separating yourself from the country in that way.
Our Scousers are Brits.
Yeah. But it's funny when you perform in Liverpool. I don't know if you've gone up and done hot water.
I don't anymore since someone wanted to fight me after the gig. That's a whole other story.
Yeah. No, I mean, I can imagine that happening. It is Liverpool's got its...
That's not unique to Liverpool, is it?
It's got a very strong... But I noticed there's some cities, Glasgow's one of them, Liverpool's another, that you go there and you've got to tell them how wonderful the city is and all the rest of it, because they've got a real... Like, they're really ingrained, and they get right behind their local heroes. Like, so Adam Rowe, a comedian in Liverpool, you know, he sells out arenas there, and they've been supporting him right from the start. Whereas London absolutely hates its own local artists.
true.
You won't get any support. You know, you couldn't fill a pub back room.
I do think they've got some case to be hard done by, but then again, I've lived in Newcastle. I remember signing on in bike, and Newcastle has incredibly high unemployment. You don't see them booing the national anthem.
Yeah.
Some people would also point to a certain irony that footballers have been kneeling for a violent, radical American organisation, and many people have been applauding that, which is BLM, but you can't applaud your own national anthem. So there's a certain irony there. You do wonder what's happening to our country in that sense. And I thought it was interesting, Howard Beckett, this guy who was almost leader of the second largest trade union in the country, was praising this, saying pure quality from socialist fans.
Oh.
So it's this weird, I know, so it's this strange thing where it becomes a political issue. You hate your own country because you're so left-wing.
Socialist and left-wing people hate their own country.
Yeah.
And that's not a great message for left-wing people to get out there.
No,
I mean,
it's a true message, though, isn't it? The left hate Britain.
And
they didn't used to. It's where they've gone really wrong. You don't associate old Labour. That was patriotic, old Labour.
Even Tony Blair's New Labour, even New Labour
cool
was
Britannia.
Aspirational and patriotic. Cool Britannia.
And Britpop.
But then it all went downhill. I guess it Miliband into Corbyn and then old Starmer.
Yeah. And there's this overlap between wokeism and momentum and all the sort of the far left. Which obviously the far left sort of hate the West because it's striving and capitalist,
and they don't want borders.
They don't want borders. They want sort of communist, socialist type thing, which all the young woke people want as well.
Too right. Well, look, lots of viewers in Liverpool. Hope you're enjoying the show. As far as I'm concerned, you're all proud Brits, and it's lovely to have your company. By the way, well done, Liverpool. What a result today! Did a number on poor old Chelsea. I think that's the third defeat they've had in the FA Cup final. So the Reds are on for a potential treble. Good luck with that.
Missing that Russian money.
Yeah, that's probably what it is. Is it the quadruple, Martin? I can't believe it. So come on, the Reds. I say that as a Spurs fan. We've not really got skin in the game this season. That's it for part one. Coming up, my two brilliant guests will be discussing the government severing ties with the NUS, the National Union of Students, over anti-Semitism, the state of blasphemy laws in Nigeria, and should elephants be treated like humans? Well, we'd have to alter the seats in the cinema for first and second options. See you in 2.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's 2 questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners with me, Mark Dolan. This is your first look at tomorrow's papers tonight in the company of the brilliant comedians Leo Kearse and Sir Nick of Dixon.
Thank you for getting the Sir in.
That's it. Dixon of Dock Green.
I was wondering where that was going to go.
Careful, folks. Family show. The Sunday Times and the government aren't impressed with the National Union of Students. Just generally, Leo?
Well, this is quite specific. The government is severing all ties with the National Union of Students after accusing it of suffering anti-Semitic rot at its heart. New president Shaima Dalali has had to apologise for a tweet. Well, she's had to apologise for a lot of things. This is a big deal. The National Union of Students represents 7 million students and is associated with 600 student unions. And some of the stuff that she's done. I mean, the NUS, they've done various sort of anti-Semitic things. They've hired an anti-Semitic rapper. I think it was the day after he'd made anti-Semitic comments about the president of Ukraine. So in 2012, she wrote on social media, Khyber, O Jews, Muhammad's army will return to Gaza. In a reference to a massacre of Jews. So this is pretty high level. This is,
by the way, in 628 AD. I mean, get over it. Do you know what I mean?
It's a lot. Water under the bridge.
Yeah, this is 68. But it's one of these things that people, anti-Semitic people bring up. In 2018, she was filmed berating Jewish students at King's College London, leaving a talk by a former Israeli politician. She's done various things that are deeply anti-Semitic. Was still elected as the new president of the NUS. And The Guardian ran an article if you read the article in The Guardian, you'd think the only problem was the Islamophobia that she received after doing all this stuff. It's absolutely incredible. It shows that anti-Semitism is just woven through wokeism and woven through student life now.
And the hard left.
And the hard left, as we were talking about before. I mean, hard left people like Jeremy Corbyn always loathe the Jews because of their success and their sort of overrepresentation in banking and industry, and the Middle East because the Jews have got one tiny little bit of it, and Jeremy Corbyn thinks they shouldn't be allowed that. So and the new wokists who for some reason have completely allied themselves with anti-Semitism and stand up for Islam all the time, completely throw Jews under the bus. And it's really sad to see. I've got Jewish friends who want to leave Britain because of the threats. I mean, there's guys driving around Jewish areas of London shouting at the windows that they were going to rape Jewish women and stuff. And it's not dealt with. So at least the government is standing up and doing something about this.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It's abhorrent, and it seems to be, doesn't it? If you read David Baddiel's book on Jews, I think it's called Jews Don't Matter. If you talk to our fantastic colleague on Headliners, Josh Howie, they'll both argue that for some reason racism towards Jewish people is an acceptable prejudice.
Yeah, it is weird, and I'm the same as you.
There's no taboo. There's not a taboo around it.
No, I know. It's very strange. And I've got Jewish friends like you. They were very worried about the whole Corbyn thing. They were very worried about in that time what was happening to the country. I've never understood this anti-Semitism. Just this thing. Just because Jews secretly run the world, I mean, that's an achievement, surely. Like you said, that's success.
Can we definitely clarify that Nicholas is joking?
Yeah, that was satire. But that's the accusation, isn't it? They always think they run everything.
Yeah.
It's mental.
Yeah. Crazy, and truly abhorrent. And racism is racism. Sunday Times now, and the government, we'll cover that one actually, we'll come back to that particular debate later. This is in The Observer, and it puts to rest any arguments for cultural relativism, Nick.
Yeah, protests in Nigeria after arrest for blasphemy killing of female student. I mean, this is absolutely horrific. So demonstrators have demanded the release of 2 students held after murder of Christian woman in Sokoto. I don't know what they're protesting about because it's a horrible murder. I've unfortunately seen horrific footage of it online, which I didn't really want to see. It's Deborah Samuel, she was stoned to death because what she essentially did, they've said here in The Observer that it was after a social media post, which is not really accurate. It was a WhatsApp there was a WhatsApp group that was supposed to be for students to discuss classes and things, and then there was a lot of religious chat in there, and she said, "Hey, why is there all this religious stuff? Because really, this is not appropriate in this group," and that was enough to get her in so much trouble. They killed it, so it's absolutely horrific. And people forget this, that Christians are persecuted around the world. It's very popular in the West now to attack Christians.
Yes.
And it's a very easy target. But, they're being persecuted in Nigeria, as this proves, Egypt, China, Pakistan. We had the Asia Bibi story. And this is absolutely horrific. So I don't know why. But I don't know, there are protests, and this is how bad it is. She gets brutally murdered for a WhatsApp message, and then there are protests against holding the people who are accused of her murder. So it's disgusting.
Yeah, and also when the authorities in the West speak about this kind of thing, they completely underplay any concept that it could be anti-Christian, religiously motivated prejudice. I mean, when there's the slaughter in Sri Lanka in the churches at Easter a few years ago, Hillary Clinton came out and said she described them as instead of describing them as the victims as Christians, she described them as Easter worshippers.
Yeah, Easter
which
worshippers.
is just the most sort of linguistic, semantic trickery to try and avoid the fact that it's Christian.
Yeah. And even Theresa May was posting similar things. I think at that time she used similar phrases. I can't remember the exact phrase. I think her dad was a vicar, but she wouldn't say. No one would say Christian.
Yeah.
It was this weird thing.
Yeah, it's so bizarre.
Yeah, it is indeed. The mangling of language for political aim. The Sunday Telegraph now, and Kim Jong-un has the chills. They are multiplying, Leo.
That's right, he does. It's not monkeypox. Over there, they're still on COVID. So, they haven't caught up with the West yet.
Whatever happened to COVID?
COVID, well, it seemed to move to China and North Korea. Where
all the countries that did so well with COVID, right?
It's almost like you've got to go through that pain barrier at some point. So you might as well just rip that Band-Aid off. But yeah, and Kim Jong-un said a COVID outbreak is a great disaster for North Korea, and he had 21 new fever deaths on Saturday. So they reckon 500,000 people have been made sick by COVID nationwide. I mean, at least not many of them are fat, which is a risk factor.
That's the president, really, isn't it?
That's where your policy of running a country into the ground so nobody can afford to eat pays off. But yeah, there's been this rise in the East, in China, in North Korea, of COVID. In Shanghai, it's a city of 27 million. They're in a savage lockdown at the moment. And apparently, Chinese vaccines aren't as effective as the vaccines we had in the West. So, even though we had COVID and we had waves of it, and we had to have lockdowns and people got it, it really, what's that screaming?
I'll be honest with you, not all of the team are enjoying tonight's show.
Right.
That was the howl of anger from one of our production team.
Right.
But I mean, this is what's actually happening. The scenes that are playing out in Shanghai, for example, and what they're going through in North Korea now, it puts paid to the idea that locking down a population is going to work.
I'm glad you said that, Mark. I was going to say, it's almost as if lockdowns don't work. It's the most sealed-off country in the world. No one's allowed in, and they get COVID anyway. So you can't. It proves once and for all, really, you can't stop it. And it's hilarious that they're following the model of China, which presumably means they're going to invent some new viruses in a lab and then get a drone to go around telling people not to scream just because they're locked in their houses. So, yeah, I mean, at least they've admitted they've got it, though. So that is a step for Kim Jong-un to admit that it's there.
Yeah, North Korea won't be able to afford drones, though. They'll just have, like, a paper plate and a stick with shut your face up.
Yeah, just a bloke going around saying, stay in. Yeah.
That will do it. Nick, the elephant's in the room. Tell me more.
Oh.
This is in the Sunday Times.
Happy to, Mark. Bronx Zoo elephant called Happy hopes to pack its trunk after court case So this is Happy, 51, decent age for an elephant. I don't know how long they live, but so he's unlawfully incarcerated, a Bronx Zoo campaigners claim. So and they're debating now on whether Happy should be considered a person under the law. A heck of a question. I'm surprised Leo Kearse is even considered a person under the law, but it's a human rights question.
Let's see my trunk.
And they argue, these campaigners for this the so-called non-human rights project, who fought to get legal rights for two chimpanzees, unsuccessfully fought, I might add, have said that Happy is unlawfully incarcerated against her will, which to a layman, you'd think that would apply to many zoo animals. Not many of them have said, thrilled to be here. But so they've argued, lawyers for the zoo argued successfully that the case should be heard in the Bronx in case the elephant was required to make an appearance. So that's another fun detail of the story. But the officials at Bronx Zoo have hit back, saying it's all untrue. Happy is not kept in isolation. Happy is not languishing. Happy is not kept indoors for half the year. Sounds a bit like sort of Chinese propaganda as well. Happy is absolutely not kept in. Very specific. Happy is not kept indoors from May through to October 16th.
I was going to say, Happy sounds like he's got a better life than me.
Well, that's true as well. He doesn't even have to do this show, does he? But we love headlines. Trying to get myself sacked. Yeah, so that's the story. The headline. Yeah, I've lost my mind.
Yeah, where's this going to stop? Is this? I mean, we've got zoo animals who are now being, getting human rights. What about farm animals? They get eaten as well. At least Happy's not getting cooked and eaten.
Well,
slaughtered.
Wait till the vegans get hold of that one.
This is are cabbages going to be next on the list for human? I think this is human rights lawyers. Human rights lawyers. There's too many human rights lawyers. They've run out of
these are non-human
seekers.
Yeah, these are non-human
asylum seekers or whatever to represent, and so now they're representing. They're looking at other things that they can represent.
Right, you're right. Where does it stop? Any non-human
they're non-human rights lawyers.
Yeah, which opens up. It does open. It opens it up to virtually anything.
Yeah.
Talk about a big trunk, as you say, not as big as Leo's tusks. In part 3, we're talking about the Essex Boy traders, a hidden Norwegian city, pyjama etiquette, and how loud can you play Dominoes legally? See you shortly.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's 2 questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back to the final part of Headliners, a first look at tomorrow's papers. I'm Mark Dolan, and with me tonight, the towering comedic figures of Leo Kearse and Nick Dixon. I'm talking figuratively, of course, or literally in the case of Leo. And let's go on to our next story. This in the Sunday Times, Nick, a story of working class boys done good or something a bit more suspicious.
Well, they've done very good. Investigators go after Essex Boys who made $700 million in an afternoon.
Whoa.
It takes me a whole day to make that. This is Elliot Pickering was the main guy. Another one, and the other one was Henry Lunn. And they did this on a day of oil trading where the price of crude oil plunged into the red for the first time. That's where they made. I mean, they were already trading, but that's where they made a massive amount. Now they're being checked over potential market abuse. The judges trying to decide if they. The question is, did they do anything to? Did they coordinate this bid to push down the oil price, or was it just picking up on blaring market signals, as their lawyers say?
Yeah. And
my favourite bit of the story, actually, their mates have made money as well. There was a guy, Aristos Dimitriou, 33, who was working in a supermarket car park, when he managed to get involved with these traders and change his whole life. You work in a supermarket car park. He met one of them. He said, how did you afford that car? Then he got involved in it, and soon he had a £3 million house, which he then demolished to build his own mansion. And I love that story because it reminds me of the bit in Wolf of Wall Street where he goes, you show me a payslip, I'll quit my job right now, come work for you. You remember that? So he's seen a guy in a supermarket, he's gone, how'd you get that car, mate? And he's told him how, come and join my trading gang, and he's become rich. So I love it. Hope they're not doing anything dodgy, because I love the fact that they've all just become loaded off trading.
I mean, all sort of high-level financial chicanery is, slightly dodgy in its element. But I think there's allegations that there's market fixing or price fixing here, because it was an unusual time. Like, the price of oil actually went negative. So people, instead of paying lots of money to buy the oil, you had to pay somebody to take the oil away. It was like a mattress in Walthamstow. So, yeah, I mean, never seen before. And obviously now, oil is sky high. We wish we could have that oil.
For sure, we can only dream, can't we? Well, next up, the Mail on Sunday have a story that seems to speak to an important aspect of the culture war and yet simultaneously be incredibly uninteresting. I'm an adult. I don't care about superheroes, Leo.
Well, you might care about these ones. So Marvel is bringing out 2 new transgender characters into their universe with the upcoming debut of Escapade, a.k.a. Sheila Sexton, and her partner in fighting crime, Morgan Red. So basically, the creator, the Escapade's superpower is that she can become a person who's standing close enough to her.
Yes.
Presumably by taking on their pronouns. I don't know why they didn't give them, appropriate transgender powers, such as being able to talk incessantly about themselves or cancelling comedians. But the creator of the transgender superheroes is trans themselves. I'm not sure if it's male to female, female to male. There's no picture, and I'm not sure if the picture would actually help. But they say they wanted to be super clear that being a mutant is not a metaphor for being trans, and vice versa. So heading off that criticism at the pass.
But they cancelled themselves before they started.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they got transgender people in a Marvel superhero film now. I mean, there's transgender people in adverts for frozen peas now. So, this is not any groundbreaking stuff. I mean, it's great to see the acceptance.
Do you think eventually this will all get so normalised that when a regular heterosexual Homo sapiens character appears in Marvel, it would be like, whoa, science fiction?
I think we're already at that point. We're already at the point where, white, straight, male, cisgender, these are pejorative terms for Generation Z. I've literally seen people on Instagram say that, order people to take down posts claiming that they're cisgender, and they're like, no, I'm non-binary. Stop smearing my name with cisgender, disgusting.
We can still be the baddies, though. They're the coolest ones, anyway. I love that one of them is one of the trans superheroes is described as having a tool belt containing an arsenal of stolen tools and devices. So their superpower is stealing, and the other one can become a person if they stand next to them. It says if you're the mayor of New York and she gets close to you, she can become mayor of New York for a while. That's how low standards are in the Democrat Party right now. You could just stand there, you become the mayor. I've made it political. It's much like Star Wars and everything. Like, for our generation, it was archetypal hero stories, and it was people like Luke Skywalker. Now we're the baddies, we're the enemies. So these stories are not for us anymore. So we have to go to other things. I don't know what.
Well, I tell you what we're going to do is we're going to go underground with the Mail on Sunday, Nick, for the nuclear apocalypse.
Yes, the hidden city under Helsinki built for the nuclear apocalypse. So Finnish city has 500 bunkers where the entire population of 60,000 people can shelter from the fallout of a nuclear war. So obviously off the back of that earlier story where, Putin was sort of perhaps threatening Finland a little bit. Now they've thought, right, the Finns have got on it. They've really got their planning done. They've built a whole underground world. I love that it potentially hold 900,000. Did I say 60,000? I meant 600,000. It can potentially hold 900,000, a third more than the city's entire population. So it's not just for the elites like some of these bunkers we've heard about. You used to have bunkers in New Zealand, didn't you, as a place? And then they went mental. So it's like, right, where are we going to have bunkers? But they've got a whole underground city. It's going to have softball courts, go-karting. It's got enough space for 50,000 double-decker buses. And they've got documents of list of jobs people will do. They can use skills gained above ground while in the shelters. Sounds like a sort of video game. But they've got a few rules. Of course, you'd expect the Finnish to have some rules. Alcohol, drugs, weapons, devices that produce heat or anything that smells bad are not allowed in the shelter. But it is so cool, and they said there will be phone signal, but their reliance on technology in the shelters is so low that they'll be safe against cyber attacks. Basically, this is sound like the place to live. I almost want to move there myself to underground Finland.
Sounds better than Happy the Elephant.
Yeah, just a bit.
Yeah, and also they'd emerge and take over afterwards. We'd have a Finnish world. Although, actually, if there was nuclear annihilation on a mass scale, it's all in the Northern Hemisphere. And weather patterns would keep the fallout circulating mainly in the Northern Hemisphere. Yeah. So the safest place to be isn't in a bunker in Finland. It's just anywhere in Australia or New Zealand. You don't even need I mean, you can maybe, put on a raincoat or something, but you don't really need protection from fallout down there.
But you'd never get into New Zealand now. While Jacinda Ardern's there, she'll never let you in.
Yeah, Jacinda Ardern, like a lot of left-wing leaders, is simultaneously incredibly pro-immigration and anti-immigration.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And she's the most woke politician in the world, in bed with China.
Yeah.
Doing deals with Beijing rather than the West.
Yeah.
Who knew? The halo has slipped. I'm quite interested in this idea of a Finnish empire.
Well, have you seen the Finnish Prime Minister?
No.
She's probably the most beautiful world leader. And I'm including Boris Johnson.
And Priti Patel.
Yeah.
Really?
Wow, she's not really a world leader, she's technically...
She's a leader to me.
She's more attractive...
She's a leader in our house.
Is she more attractive than Donald Trump?
Yeah.
I find that hard to believe.
Yeah, someone should do a little chart of... And you can't be sexist about it. Be hot politicians, male and female.
That's why I compared her to Boris.
Exactly. Well, that would do it. A very favourable comparison. The Finnish Empire, we'd all have we'd have clean streets, wouldn't we? And we'd be eating boiled fish.
We'd be eating Russians.
We probably would, wouldn't we? And we'd all be on Nokia phones again.
Yeah.
They'd have a comeback.
Yeah. Well, they could survive a nuclear war. Yeah. The old Nokia 6810.
It's true.
The last thing left alive.
Too right, and I'll drink to that. Well, The Observer once more, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say that this is one of the most interesting stories I've seen about Domino's in my life. It's also the only story I've ever read about Domino's. Leo?
Yeah, so a Domino's player has won a court case over a ban against him and his friends playing Domino's loudly that he said was racially motivated. So Ernest Theophile, 74, plays Domino's and chats and plays cards and backgammon with his friends in Maida Hill Market Square in northwest London, and the council banned him and his friends. These are old guys. He's 74. They banned him and his friends from congregating there in 2021, citing noise and antisocial behaviour problems. It said it had received more than 200 complaints, and yeah, it just seems ridiculous. And I think Domino's is part of that sort of Caribbean culture. Obviously, when they play, they get animated and have a lot of fun with it. So he's making a bit of noise. But that's a great thing to see. It's great to see, people coming out and taking over public spaces in a fun way. And it actually prevents crime because you can't... when I worked with the police, you'd encourage that sort of ownership, that custodianship of the space, because if Ernest Theophile is there playing Domino's, nobody's going to be stealing bikes or mugging anybody. So I can't believe that Westminster Council wasted taxpayers' money trying to hound these old men who've contributed to society their whole lives, trying to hound them off the square and stop them having fun. And I think it could well be racially motivated.
Well, for the sake of debate on the show, I'm going to give the opposite misanthropic case that noise is a huge problem in London. I live next to some very noisy people. It ruins your life. Noise is a problem. I question whether a council in ultra-woke London is doing something racially motivated. I mean, I think it's a noise issue. You could argue the noise is inherent to the playing of dominoes for West Indian people, but surely every culture has some noisy traditions. It's a question of when you do. Austrians aren't out there yodeling all night, do you know what I mean? So it might just be a question simply of a noise complaint that is ruining other people's lives. So that's the counter. I'm sure they're all top lads, but that would be my counter.
Do you remember in the 90s and the noughties when female tennis players were getting in trouble for grunting every time they served?
Yes.
And I think actually that the referees were beginning to sort of deduct points for the noisy service.
Well, it wasn't just serves, it was every shot, some of them.
But nobody's trying to sleep.
Monica Seles, I think.
Seles was doing it. A lot of them were doing it.
Yeah.
Nobody's trying to sleep in the stands, though. No, I think this... I mean, they've been doing it for 20 years as well. So, anybody who's moved to the area knows that they're moving to an area where this happens. So, I don't think it's making a lot of noise in the grand scheme of things.
No, Dave.
I'm going to go and live in the woods anyway.
There you go. Well, that would do it then. Raised by wolves. Yet another story about class, this time from the Daily Star on Sunday, Nick.
Yes. Is this about the train?
Toenails.
Oh, this is horrible. So there's not much to this story really, other than someone discovered some toenails on someone had been clipping their nails on a train. It's really just another indication that our country is broken and our society is falling apart. I mean, the other day we had the story, oh, there they are, in case the viewers needed to see that. This is what's competing with Eurovision, is a picture of some toenails.
Wait, so they got a cleaning team on the train for that?
I know, it's not a lot, is it?
No.
It's gross, but it's not as what you picture.
That's a hazard.
I'd count that as a particularly clean train.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I know what you mean. It is.
Post-COVID, that's a health incident.
It's quite minor compared to... We had a train story the other day about a train in Manchester where it shut down. People were stuck in it for a couple of hours. The power had gone out. People were smoking. They were urinating on the floor. They were fighting. Society just fell apart in about 2 hours. So it's all relative.
I can take toenails on a train carriage. I can't take a hot McDonald's.
Toenails in a train carriage. That's an Agatha Christie.
It's got to be, hasn't it?
Yeah.
You don't like
you know when you're on a commute and someone comes in with a Burger King.
Oh, you can smell it.
Mackie D's.
That weird sweet smell.
It is a bit.
Yeah. Is it because it's gross or because you want to eat it?
No, it's definitely gross. Okay. Unless I've had a...
You're very anti...
Stella, then I'm jealous.
You're anti-carbs, aren't you, Mark? You just any carbs, you're like...
The war on carbs. And by the way, this story about toenails dovetails with our next story in the Sunday Mirror and pyjama etiquette, Leo.
Yeah, if you thought the last story was low in substance, wait until you get a load of this. So, mum of three, Jodie Palmer, sparked a heated debate online when a journalist couldn't be bothered doing any investigation and just went on Mumsnet. So she shared a photograph of herself wearing pyjamas while dropping off her kids at school. The 34-year-old from Swindon says she's proud to wear her PJs, but her post was flooded with comments shaming her for doing so, with some branding her disgusting, dirty and lazy, to which we have to say, so what? So
yes.
What, somebody wore pyjamas to drop the kids off at school, then posted photos online, and smart people don't like. I mean, you're not going to get a Pulitzer for this Sunday Mirror.
I can easily see how it could happen. Mike, you could easily, you're rushing, but why did she have to post a photo of it? I do question that. And people are saying it's disgusting. I don't think that's going too far. But my rule of thumb is, would Thatcher do it? And clearly she wouldn't do this.
Thatcher wouldn't do it.
No, so therefore it's bad.
Driving the car herself.
Well, I'm saying it is a lowering of standards in the country, Leo.
Yeah. Although,
that's all I'm saying.
You can't really compare yourself to a world leader, I guess.
I mean,
the real answer might be, so she works 2 jobs as a children's entertainer and she's a leader with Avon. So she might be wanting some publicity for her children's entertainment, which I'm sure she wears appropriate clothes for, not pyjamas, or she might be wanting to sell more Avon products.
Fair enough.
Don't you think it sets a bad example, though? Mums or dads taking their kids to school in pyjamas, or indeed people in Tesco's just going around in, a dressing gown.
Yeah, you do see people slobbing around. You even see comedians wearing just track pants and a grubby T-shirt. And
on stage?
I was gigging one at Vauxhall, MC, and he came he was wearing the grubby clothes. And I was thinking, when's he going to get changed into something smart, like Mark or Nick would do? And he said, somebody asked him about his T-shirt, Fila T-shirt, and he said, "Oh, this is my new stage gear." He's like, "That's your stage gear. What do you wear around the house?
It was
a flour sack."
It was in Vauxhall.
Rabsi Nesbitt. Well, look, Martin, I'll let you choose our last story. Where shall we go?
Vogue is good.
OK, let's go UFOs, shall we? And it's actually quite an interesting story in the Sunday Telegraph, Nick.
I was going to do the other one. OK,
do the other one if you want.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Who cares? No one's watching because of Eurovision. The truth is out there. So Pentagon... this is a good story. This is an important story, though. The Pentagon faces public grilling over UFO sightings. So the Pentagon has essentially said, look, we don't know what's out there. I mean, they're going to actually be an official sort of hearing about it because there was 144 instances of unidentified aerial phenomena since 2004, and they could only explain one of them with confidence, which is not very many. So this is the thing, Mark. UFOs are real. Watch the Bob Lazar documentary. It's definitely true. Aliens are definitely real. Weirdly, it hasn't impacted my life that much.
I've got an issue. I'm struggling to care about UFOs.
That's the thing. It's quite important because the fact that aliens are real and UFOs exist, and yet it hasn't really changed my bottom line that much. You know what I mean?
I just miss the days when conspiracy theorists focused on UFOs instead, and now they focus on real nuts and bolts stuff like the Ukraine war or COVID.
Now you're talking. That definitely matters, doesn't it? Well, look, lads, thank you for a brilliant Headliners. Headliners returns tomorrow at 11 o'clock. My sincere thanks to the hugely talented Leo Kearse and Nicholas Dixon, Sir Nick of Dixon. Tomorrow, really excited about my show because my Mark Meets guest is showbiz legend Christopher Biggins. And also in the big question, do we make too much of a fuss about mental health? That's all at 9. I'll see you then.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan